All right. Thanks, Jody. So Steve Grandizio with Norcom and All Points Mortgage, and we are excited. I don't want to talk too long. We're excited at All Points Mortgage to be bringing you Ellie Pascone, who, if those of you who don't know, mortgage companies have two options. You can go to an outside appraisal management company, or you can create your own appraisal management company, and Norcom and All Points have chosen to have an in-house appraisal management company, and Ellie runs that in-house appraisal management company. So
Sure,
tons of years
that's
of
fine.
experience
Is it
in the state of
realtor
Connecticut.
Elaine212 at
Oh,
gmail.com?
let me mute. Be able to mute. Oh, there you go. So Ellie comes with a ton of experience, doesn't really need much more of an introduction. I'm sure he's going to give you his backstory and everything. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ellie.
Will do. All right, Steve. Thank you. Thank you, Jody. Yes, as Steve said, Phil, the owner of Norcom, decided to bring the appraisal piece in-house. I think we all agree that pretty much every loan starts and ends with the appraisal, right? So you got to get that appraisal ordered. You got to get it back in. Hopefully, it's at the value that you need. And along the way, I'm sure there's questions. There will be, by definition, the appraisal is an opinion of value. So it's one person's opinion at any given moment. So there's bound to be disagreements, right? So this is my information. Feel free to reach out to me at any time. I've been here since 2012. I've been appraising since 2002, so for about 20 years now. So I've ridden a couple of these markets, it's having us in-house is another resource for you guys. Happy to do lunch and learns. I'm happy to answer any appraisal related questions. For those of you that have my cell, our loan officers will reach out to me over the weekend, say, hey, got a borrower who's looking at an FHA property, he's going with FHA on this property, and we have questions wondering if this is going to pass, not pass. I'll touch on some of the most common ones that I see towards the end of the appraisal, but by no means, this is not a lecture. This is just, I'm here for Q&A through the entire, I think we have about an hour or so, or 45 minutes if you want. So consider it Q&A for the entire process. Just blurt out a question or send it to Jody or Steve, however you want to handle it. And because I throw some slides up there just to stir some thought, and the majority of folks who attend these, they'll say, yeah, I got the same problem going on right now. How do you recommend I solve it, right? So I'd like to start with this slide right here that your home is seen by you, your buyer, your lender, your appraiser, and obviously your tax assessor, right? And that just goes back to that this is a very subjective profession, right? Like I said, it's one person's opinion in one given moment. And so as an in-house AMC, we're here to deal with the discrepancies, disagreements, and we hope those are the exceptions, not the rule, right? In the past 10 years, I pride myself and Norcom and our underwriting team, quality control team, that I've only had to do one. We had a buyback request or repurchase. It was a loan that we did. Fannie wrote us, said, hey, we don't like this and this and this about the appraisal. Had to do they sent the letter out that they wanted us to buy back the loan. And at the time I had to do we had our appraisal, Fannie had their review. We had to order a third independent review. And then I had to do a point and counterpoint of all three. And we actually won the case, and they withdrew the repurchase requirement back. So that's what I'll, when I go through some of these things, that's one of the things that we're very proud of. Phil's been opened up Norcom back in 89, 90. And ever since, even through the turbulent times of 2006 through 8, Phil was growing this company. So it's based on solid principles, solid underwriting teams, risk analysis teams, and then adding the in-house appraisal management company in 2012 was probably a great move on his part. We'll talk about standardized property measuring, desktop appraisals, the review process, and FHA guidelines, some of the basic ones. But like I said, it's just there to spur thought. If you have a question or a related topic, just please let me know, okay? This is every time I review an appraisal, there's always questions on this because as April 1st, appraisers now have to measure every property per ANSI, right, which is the measuring guidelines Z765. That's not the important part. The important part is there's a certain way that an appraiser has to measure a property. And how this applies to realtors is that, I always said realtors are unofficial appraisers, right? They're just not wearing the appraiser hat. But you're out there, listing a property, you're representing a buyer buying a property. I always recommend that to every realtor that and loan officer, because I'm even surprised, sometimes when a loan officer may not have understood a guideline. So I always say you should know everything about the property that you're working with, okay? So some of the main points, right? The measurements are taken to the nearest inch or tenth of a foot. So if you have a wall that's, 15 feet, 6 inches wide, that's what you're going to draw on your sketch. And then the sketching software will round the whole number. So you don't, when you take your measurement and that wall is 15.6, right? You put it in as 15.6, you don't put it in as 16 feet or 15 feet, right? You let the whole number, the rounding, come at the end. This is huge. Basement is any space that is partially or completely below grade. I'll show some examples that they're going to blow your mind, right? I get a lot of questions. It doesn't appear that the appraisal included the finished basement in GLA. First question was it all above grade? Well, it's just the back corner of it, is partially below. Well, if that's the case, that entire level is considered below grade. And then the part about the openings to the second floor, like staircases and all that, foyers, we'll get into some more detailed examples here. This one's huge, right? And I've seen a couple examples come across my desk, right? Finished areas must have a ceiling height of at least 7 feet, okay, for at least 50% of that room. This applies mostly to capes, right? So you go upstairs, and this is a slide that illustrates that. So you go up to this area here on the cape, right? These areas, the eaves, they're not counted as living space, okay? You have to apply the rule, 7 feet for at least 50% of a room. And that's what's going to get entered in the GLA line, finished above grade GLA, okay? It's not the entire footprint. Again, I'm a very visual guy, so I have some great examples of stuff that's come across my desk, and you'll see why they did this. Basically, these forms are used across the nation. The 1004 form, if you're familiar with it, it could be an appraiser out in California versus an appraiser in Connecticut. They're all, completing the same form. Therefore, that form, they had to draw a line in the sand so that everybody was comparing apples and apples and completing the form in the same manner, right? So in this next slide, say you had a house that backed up to this little hill right here, right? Now, all of a sudden, what you thought was the first level of the house is technically below grade, right? And I'm going to show you some extreme examples of this, and then some real, examples that you'll come across. But you need to be aware of this, especially for, raised ranches, split levels, right? This happens a lot. You may have a raised ranch or a split level where that, first level, which is technically below grade, appears to be all above grade. But if any portion of it catches it below grade, it's going to be considered all below grade. It doesn't mean it doesn't have value. It just means it's going to be treated separately. Okay. These are some extreme examples, right? You're probably not going to see them here. You might see them in some very mountainous areas. This is out in Seattle, right? So this house here, right? The first three levels, so this level, this one, and this one are all considered below grade, okay? Because they catch a portion of this hillside that's coming into it. Again, it doesn't mean it doesn't have value. It's just going to be treated separately. And I'll show you an example of that with this one particular house coming up. Okay, so this is kind of like that sketch you just saw. It's a house built into a little hill. So the hill catches this corner right here. This level right here would be considered below grade, all of it. This house does go on further to the right. There's actually a two-story attached dwelling to that. So it's not that this whole thing would have been below grade. But this one here is the extreme, right? When you walk in from the street, this is what you see. You got this opening here, and you can see it overlooks a beautiful lake, right? So what does that mean? Does that mean it's a 500 square foot home? No. The idea behind this is that to make sure it's measured comparatively, right? This is part of that form, the 1004 form. This is a sales comparison grid. And so that all appraisers are on the same page, you have to take out the 500 square feet that's above grade. And if you look at this line, and I always get a lot of questions on how this is read, right? So it's 500 square feet above grade, 3,500 square feet below grade, of which 3,500 square feet is finished, okay? In that finished area, you got one rec room, 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and one other. Now, look at the adjustment the appraisers made, right? Obviously, we're not dealing with a 500 square foot home. We're dealing with a 4,000 square foot home. It happens that 3,500 square feet of that is below grade. However, it carries a lot of value, right? So you see the adjustment lines here. You adjusted it for 1,500 square feet. I'm sorry, for a difference of 3,000 square feet. He attributed a value of 1.5 million, 1 million this one, and 1.3 on that one, right? So you say, great, that's out in Seattle. What are the likelihood we see something like that here? Okay. Here's a house that I did actually before all this even was in place. And this is not related to basements, but it's related to open airspace, right? Cathedral ceilings, foyers, 2-story foyers, right? So when you first walk into this house, you have this grand foyer, 2 stories, and you got this grand staircase going up to this, what looks like a bridge, right? Another angle of that section there, okay? And another one from down here, okay? And then once again, I'm standing in the kitchen. You can see the cathedral ceilings. You can see the bridge-like structure here, right? So I got this assignment. It was before HVCC kicked into place. I was getting assignments from brokers. They could order directly from me. And the broker called me and said, Ellie, I got a 5,000 square foot home. The borrower thinks it's worth X. So I said, okay, well, let me take a look, right? And I pulled the online data, and I was a little blown away by the online data. It did say 4,996 square feet. So he was right about that. But then it said 3 bedrooms, right? So I go out to the inspection. This is me standing up at that, bridge-like structure looking down, right? So I go out for the inspection, then I go out to the town hall, right, to pull the field card, right, and look at the sales books and start looking at my comps. This is where realtors come in, right? As a realtor, you should be doing this. You should pull the building file on it, the tax card on it, the assessor's card. Get rid of those. Pull the assessor's card, the billing. You find everything out about the property that you can, right? So when I got to the assessor's office, I'm looking, here's my subject, right? First comp I pull, right, it's got this CTH right here, right? So that to me as an appraiser indicates that they're removing the cathedral ceiling space. After all, you can't walk on air, right? From the sketch. So I pulled, I called the assessor over and I said, hey, listen, I see that you have the CTH here, that you're removing a 2-story foyer. However, this is my subject. And then I had my pictures with me and I showed her my pictures and I said, this is what I just inspected. Now, normally when I inspect a house, if it doesn't benefit the borrower, it's their business, and I don't even, that's up to the borrower to take up with the assessor and the assessor take up with the borrower. However, I said to the assessor, I said, this was back in, this home I think was built in 95, right? And I think I had done the appraisal in, 2005. So 10 years worth of taxes being paid on 5,000 square feet, when in reality, after I measured the house, right, those areas, so here's that 2-story foyer, and this is the area down below, right? Here's that bridge-like structure. So the areas in yellow should not be counted in the total GLA, right? So what the card was saying was 4,996 or 5,000 square feet roughly was really a 3,800 square foot home, which now to me made more sense for the reason why it had, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, right? So you came up to the top, you had the master bedroom on one side, and you had the kids' rooms and laundry room, et cetera, on the other side, right? So that makes, now the borrower was not happy, right? They were paying taxes on, 5,000 square feet for 10 years roughly. And obviously the value of the home was much lower than what they expected because it wasn't a 5,000 square foot home, right? More common everyday examples, right? I get this as an appraisal that came to my desk. This particular house, okay, was used as comp 4 in the appraisal, okay? Now, when I pulled the sketch, I believe this is from Canton. So if you guys recognize the house, some of you. So I pulled the sketch, right? And I see that the garage, right, is 22 by 24. And it says 1-story framed, right, over 2-car garage, 2FG, right? So that means that they attributed the square footage of this area above the garage as 22 by 24 or 484 square feet. Now, you guys are experts in your fields and you know the market participants and people buying these homes. Will the typical buyer look at this room over here the same as any of these other rooms, in a full 2nd story of the home? Obviously not, right? So this is the room above the garage, right? Here's, if you have a bad dream, you're waking up and you're probably banging your head over here, right? And this goes back to that ANSI measuring code, right? Where, so I'm about 5'10", right? So I'm gauging my height. If this ceiling right here is not 7 feet, we're going to have an issue, right? It doesn't mean it's not going to give value. It's just going to be taken out of the GLA. The appraiser still lists the rooms, right? But it's taken out of the GLA and then it's put into a separate line item in the appraisal. And it may have the same value or it may not. But the important part of it is Fannie and Freddie Mac, who designed those forms, right? Who are the biggest market participants of, in the secondary market. They wanted it treated it that way. So this is the room over the garage. This is a regular room. Obviously, these two, offer different functionality. Like I said, I'm about 5'10". The minute I hit the 5-foot mark on this angle right here, that's why I stopped measuring. So these eaves are not going to count. So you say, okay, great, Ellie. So I'm like, well, if you're a realtor and you're listing a house, right, or you're representing a buyer buying a house, look at these things, right? So whoever listed this property, and I'm going to show you the next slide. I kind of don't fault the realtor, right? Because the realtor, this is the information on the field card. This was the MLS listing, right? And again, how it showed up in our appraisal, right? So in the field card, it does say 2972, right? which transferred over to the MLS listing. And then, like I said, it showed up as comp 4 in our appraisal. This house was on the same street as the subject property, right? And it got a $26,000 adjustments for differences in GLA, right? When this house wasn't a true 2,900 square foot house, it was more like upper 26s, 2,700 square feet, right? And this adjustment wouldn't have been as great, and it may or may have not supported the overall valuation, right? The reason it was brought to our attention because the borrower is like, well, no, we know. No, I'm sorry, the sellers, they're like, we know that house, right? That house is not 20. We've been inside the house. That house is not 2,900 square feet. And so, make the long story short, we went back to the appraiser, had them revisit it, look at it, and we received a revised appraisal, right? So, to summarize, just make sure you know everything about the property. Make sure you're representing the property, because somebody who listed this property at 2,972 should have looked at that sketch, right? They should have realized that the room above the garage was being misrepresented and made an adjustment, right? Whether or not they discuss it with the assessors, that's another thing, because this borrower, again, is also paying taxes on 2,900 square feet when it's actually something less than that. By the way, the National Association of Builders, they have adopted the same, ANSI code. That ANSI, it's available as a link here on these slides, so you're welcome to look it up. I think they're charging $25 for the PDF if you want our own copy, but you can certainly research it. I'm not sure if you'll get the full version, for free, but it's definitely out there, and it's definitely something that can't be ignored, right? Jumping into desktop appraisals, it hasn't gained much traction, but I like to expose this to the realtors because it is a way in a manner that you can participate. Because once this takes off, if and when it takes off, you could be an integral part of this, right? To speed the whole idea behind this is if Fannie started accepting some desktop appraisals for purchases, right? Which means that the appraiser can do the entire analysis from their desk, right? And then use other sources. What I'm about to show you is one way of inspecting the home, right? Where the seller can participate or the realtor can participate. And I've gotten feedback, both negative and positive. I've had some realtors say, why am I doing the appraiser's job, right? Well, if that meant getting an appraisal in 5 to 6 days versus 2 weeks or 3 weeks, that might be something that you might be willing to do, right? I'm going to play a little video for you guys of how this works. Hopefully you guys, get the audio. Please let me know, somebody, if you're not hearing it.
By the appraiser profession.
Hearing it.
Us in doing this type of technology, we provide them a way to turn back to the lender community and say, we can get you what you need. We can do it quickly. We can do it accurately. You don't have to sacrifice the veracity of the appraisal process to get what you want, which is.
I think remote val is going to allow the appraisal piece transaction to not be what is of transactions. It's not going to be a time-consuming piece. It's not going to have that same perception of, well, it's going to take a long time.
It allows the appraiser to actually remote control what a consumer is doing with their camera. In our application, the consumer doesn't have to do anything other than click a text message link, which launches the mobile experience, automatically downloads a very thin, very light application onto their phone. With that, now all the person's doing is holding their phone, and they're walking around and they're talking, right, to the appraiser. The appraiser's taking the pictures, the appraiser's doing the measurements, they're just answering questions and having a conversation and walking through their own house.
When you have an app like remote val, where they're able to have surety around a location where that person is standing, where that video is being made, where those pictures are being taken, where they can verify measurements. That helps them meet the standards and not have any sorts of doubts around the data that they're gathering.
We brought something new to the market that allows the appraiser to control everything. And I would say it's an evolution of the process that really aligns more closely with how the appraiser does things today. We're not sending someone to the property for one thing. So I like to say it's pandemic resistant in that sense, because the consumer, anyone that a lender designates as a lender designated user on the other end, as long as they have a phone, the appraiser can connect to them, initiate a remote val session, and then do the inspection. We're bringing speed to the process. We're bringing the lender what they want. We're bringing fast pay to the process, so it's seamless and the appraiser doesn't have to think about it, all wrapped up into almost like an ecosystem of service. We can take this from a 3 to 4 week process to a 3 to 4 day process almost every time and very consistently for most appraisals.
So why is that? Why are these companies popping up, right? Remote Val is one of them. Cubicasa is one of them. It's because to allow the desktop appraisals, right? The same exhibits that are required for the full 1004 inspection, for example, a picture of the front of the house, the rear, the street, a measurement of the house, it's not just a sketch, but actually it's an actual floor plan showing the location of the bedrooms, bathrooms. Do you have to walk through one bedroom to get to the other, right? If that's the case, that first bedroom will not be considered a bedroom. So all these things are required still in a desktop appraisal. What they're trying to do is that let the appraiser use their know-how and their apply their skills in actually evaluating or placing a value on the property versus going out and gathering data, right? So, this is where like I've gotten mixed reviews of this. It's like, well, the realtor's like, I got to show up and now I got to, download something to my phone. It's send over a text message, you click on it and automatically will download and open it for you. And if you saw in the video, it's literally you're walking into a room and you're just panning the entire, you basically do a 360 in a room. And the software is gathering the measurement. You could see a virtual tape measure, right? There's one point in there, you saw somebody pull a mirror away from the wall. It was hiding a hole, right? So the appraiser is kind of guiding you and saying, hey, I need to see more of this, more of that. And it will speed up the process. Okay. Believe me when I tell you, being out there, for the past 20 years, I could see how this is going to really help. And as you heard, it's somebody that we deem qualified. We may have a seller who's, yeah, I'm going to be home. I'm willing to do that. I'll take the appraiser's phone call and text message. And as you saw the person, panning, the appraiser on their end, they're capturing photos. First of all, the whole thing is a video recording that's sent to the appraiser later, so they can review it, grab whatever photos they need, right? And it really will speed up the process. So just be on the lookout for that. If one of our loan officers at all points say, hey, this qualifies for a desktop, right? That should be good news, right? So we could obviously speed up the process. It's just that the timing of this, right? If this was in place back in 2020 and 2021, the volume was through the roof, right? I've gotten mixed feelings from appraisers as well, because they said, listen, things are slow. I don't have that many orders right now. Properties down the street from me, because our appraisers do appreciate the fact that we're assigning orders, within 5 to 10 miles of their dwelling or their office or wherever they start their work from. And they say, it's a lot quicker for me to go there and just do it myself. You know what I mean? So, but need to expose it to you. So, be aware that this could be coming down the road, and you may have a loan officer here that says, hey, this qualifies for the desktop appraisal. Okay. Let's see. Oh, okay. Getting into the collateral risk analysis, right, which is also part of this company, right? ValueQuest handles the entire appraisal process, right, from order placement to report delivery. When we QC a report and we say, hey, listen, all the pictures are where they're supposed to be, the sketch is there, everything is good, we're going to release it to the loan officer and processors or loan officer's assistant, anybody that's involved with the loan. I always caution them to explain to their borrowers, to the buying agent. No offense to the listing agent, but that person is the last one we want to hear from, because they, obviously they're trying to sell the house for as much as possible, right? So when the report is released, the loan officer has the opportunity to discuss it with their borrower, discuss it with the buying agent, right? Look over the report and see, is there something that the appraiser might have missed, right? Remember, it's a subjective profession at best, right? So there's about to be some disagreements, and in our company, you do have the ROV process, right? Reconsideration of value process, because everybody's human and they might make a mistake. If you're working with a lender that does not have an in-house AMC, right? What I'm about to show you is not available to appraisal management companies. This is a software that Fannie and Freddie put out for lenders and lenders only, okay? And as of 2015, they are running a collateral risk analysis on every report that's submitted. This is a very robust, don't worry about what's on your screen right now. It's not meant to be legible, but it's a depiction of the amount of information that's in there for us as a lender, right? To make a lending decision, right? So I'm going to show you an example, right, where we got a high risk score, okay, on a particular file. Now, I mentioned to you, AMCs don't have access to this, so they can't really interpret the findings. They can only receive the messages that are sometimes cryptic from Fannie and Freddie. For example, the appraiser's GLA adjustment is materially different than model and peers, right? If you just send that to an appraiser to comment, appraiser is going to say, well, how do I know what the model's adjustment is or my peers adjustments are, right? The way you guys benefit as realtors by having this in-house, right, is that I'm not only president of ValueQuest, I'm also chief appraiser for Norcom Mortgage, All Points Mortgage. And so I have access to this software, which is very robust, right? So we got a file that the appraiser came in at $778,000, okay? That was his valuation. When I looked at the collateral risk analysis review, right? If you look over here, this is the model adjusted values, and these are the raw values that came in, right? As you can see, there's not one sale, right? Except with the exception of this one, 850, okay, which the appraiser used as comp one, right? There's not another sale that's anywhere near the 778 valuation, right? Remember what I said. When you get a copy of that, if the loan officer says, yeah, we have the report, first question you're going to ask, is it at value? And they say yes, right? Just remember that the review and underwriting process has just begun, right? So in this case, this file, I looked at the report, right? Here's where you'll learn some, some of you are very familiar with the 1004 form or the appraisal forms. Some of you can pick up some key areas to look at, right? I looked at the front page of the report, right? The property was listed as 649,000, right? So I'm like, okay, did the listing agent not know what they're doing? Was it listed really low to drive, get a frenzy of offers coming in, right? What are the current market conditions, right? The appraiser, so here's the 649, the appraiser is saying stable and imbalance, okay? So, okay, I would expect to see increasing in shortage, right? If that's the case, right? So we all know that when there's a, low supply of available alternatives to purchase. That's going to drive demand. Demand was going to drive up the values, right? So none of these things are checked off. So I'm like, okay, can I have a conversation with the appraiser? I sent them my review and I asked, right? Now this portion of the grid is redacted, okay? So this was a subject, comp 1, comp 2, comp 3. Comp 1 and comp 2 are both on the subject street, okay? Right away you say, okay, well, 850,000 for comp 1, 636 for comp 2. How, are these like completely different homes? What was one dilapidated? Nope. You look at the condition, C3, all cost, meaning the conditions were all rated the same. Age of this house is actually much newer than, at 36 versus 117 for the subject, right? Some of the highlights are the key noted differences, right? Comp 1, site size, 7 times larger than the subjects, right? GLA, right? About 700 square feet, almost 800 square feet bigger than the subject, right? So then comp 2 is in the vicinity, less than a mile away, but I was really focusing on the two sales on the subject street, right? So then I look at comp 3, okay, 1,600 square feet, okay, it's smaller, but by only 200 square feet, right? Side size comparable, right? And then the other, the other line that you want to look in is at the very bottom, right? The net and gross adjustments, okay? Gross adjustments is just all these values, okay, added together. So the appraiser chose this comp. It was different in site size, number of bathrooms, square footage, made his adjustments, right? And he came to a 778 adjusted value, 78,400, right? So you say, okay, well, what's wrong with a 778 valuation, right? Well, technically, unless you have the perfect comp, right? And this tends to happen more often when you're doing a condo, right? Because condos will have very similar units, right? They'll have unit type A, B, and C. Type A is a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom. Type B is a 2-bedroom. Type C is a 1-bedroom. If you're selling or you're representing a buyer buying a 2-bedroom, you hope to see 3 comps in the subject complex and a 4th comp outside, but all 2 bedrooms, roughly the square footage. That's a dream. It's like I said, up here in the Northeast tends to have more condos. When you start getting to other parts of the country where you have these very large subdivisions where every house is really similar, and again, you might have 3 types. Sometimes they're inverted mirror images. That's when you would expect to see very similar and very little in terms of adjustments, right? The key line here, right? Gross adjustments, 9.6. Gross adjustments for comp 3, 5.3, right? That means that comp 3 was more comparable, more similar to the subject because the appraiser didn't have to adjust for as many differences, right? So when I asked the appraiser, I said, how did you weigh your valuation? Because, in a textbook appraisal, right, you would hope that, okay, you have 3 sale prices, right? You make your adjustments, so now you have 3 adjusted values, and your final valuation should fall between these 3 and then these 3 right here, right? Because like I said, these are not carbon copies of the subject. We understand they have to be adjusted for differences, but your valuation should fall, somewhere in that range, in those ranges. When I asked the appraiser, how did he come up with the 778? His response was not that good, right? He goes, well, because, we felt it was the most similar. And I said to him, well, technically the most similar is comp 3, right? Because it's got the least amount of adjustments. If you had 0 in these columns, right, it would be the identical comp, right? And so long story short, remember what I said, when we receive the appraisal, it just starts the review and underwriting process. I had two underwriters looking at this and they asked for my opinion. I said, I am not comfortable with this value. Do they want to proceed with the loan? If so, they should, we're going to need a field review. So we ordered a field review of the appraisal. The field review came back with a valuation of $669,000. And what was most shocking was that this comp that sold for $850,000. Remember when I said to you, site size was 7 times larger than the subjects? This comp included a second building lot, okay, which had a valuation of $225,000 on its own, right? And this was discovered by the field review. So again, we're all humans. The appraiser made a mistake. However, it's the appraisers that aren't willing to have a conversation with another one of their peers, myself, right, that we really don't want to do business with, right? So the appraisers we keep on our rotation, on our panel, are those that I'm not saying that the appraiser has to change the valuation, but have a conversation with me. This guy gave me 10 minutes and basically, didn't want to discuss anything. His response was, I'm very comfortable with my valuation, and it is what it is, right? So we're a company that likes to work with our borrowers. The loan was reconfigured. They were able to do the loan at $669,000, but this is why, and you think the borrower was ecstatic with this outcome, right? There were some renegotiations done. The sellers came down. I don't know how much they had to come down, and the borrowers put down a little more, but we saved them from being underwater almost immediately the minute they took the loan. Had we done this loan at $778,000, right? So that's the outcome of that. Another example, I'll run through this pretty quickly. We had a valuation of $342,000. Again, I'm looking at raw sales price versus the adjusted. And then another feature, like I said from before, this is a very robust risk analysis tool. And one of the things it does is give us a mapping feature with, which I don't have pictured here. They're called heat maps, right? And it'll show by neighborhoods what the median sales price is. So first question to the appraiser. One thing I need to point out to you guys is that these homes here that are double in color, blue and yellow, these are the comps the appraiser used, right? And these right here, all these other ones that are just yellow or orange are other potential comparables. And don't forget that this information is being extracted from reports being uploaded to Fannie Mae's portal, right? So it all comes from appraisers. So I reached out to the appraiser and I said, hey, how about these, right? There's 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the subject, obviously right here. 5, 6 other potential comparables, right? In the subject's neighborhood. Why use this one up here? Why cross this major boundary here and go over here, right? So appraiser really didn't have a great answer for it. So he took, and again, now these comps are, let me just point out one thing on the original grid, right? 0.5 miles, let me be covered here by this thing. 0.5 miles, 0.75, and 0.14. This is the one comp he used in the neighborhood, right? These were further away. The new grid, after we analyzed it, right, after we reached out to the appraiser for a response of our review, the appraiser took those that I just showed you on a map that are 0.14 miles away, 0.25 and 0.29. This was comp 3 in the original grid. It is now comp 1. The value goes from 342 to 300, and our risk score goes from a 5 to a 2, meaning anything below 2.5, which is a threshold, we as a lender don't have to worry about a buyback request or repurchase request, right? So you think as a lender, we want to make sure that we're doing some sound lending and making sure that we're not taking on stuff that might be high risk, right? This is why Fannie put this in place, okay? And make sure that we as a lender, every lender, any lender that's submitting or selling a loan to the secondary market has to answer to these findings. Here's the new map, right? Here's the subject. Here are the 3 new comps, actually 4 now within the same subdivision, right? So just be aware, right? You get the report. We've started the underwriting process, the review process, and these are the exceptions, not the rule. That they don't often change like this, but just be aware that this is all going on behind the scenes when you're wondering, hey, did we finally get the clear to close, et cetera, okay? Let's see, it's 12:47. Does anybody have any questions, before I just move on to some a quick FHA most common errors?
We do have some questions.
Go ahead.
So Elaine, Steve, you want to take Elaine's question? Let's see.
I'm muted. Sorry. Yeah, so Elaine's question, that was the first question, was what is the process to get an appraisal revised if there's perceived discrepancy?
Great question, right? So when you're working with one of our loan officers, they have the reconsideration of value form, right? It's a PDF that's editable, right? And it's designed the way it is because we're not looking for 10 sales that sold for higher. There's space for 4 additional, and the key word here is sales, right? Because it's the appraiser who's going to deem them comparable or not, right? But for example, if you're representing a buyer, or if you're listing a property that has been completely renovated, right? And you get the report back and you look at comp 1, and that comp hasn't been touched in 15, 20 years, right? And you have a sale that better represents the condition of the subject, by all means, reach out and say, hey, I don't believe this is this comp 1, because, equally as important and part of the process of the ROV, reconsideration of value form, is to explain why the comps already in the report are no good and why you feel you should submit additional sales. So in this particular example I was mentioning, send over some pictures, right? You could say, look, this is comp 1 was used by the appraiser, hasn't been touched, doesn't have the renovated kitchen, doesn't have renovated bathrooms, no, the windows are old, roof is old, and we will start a conversation with the appraiser, right? I will say this, right? There's been times where the appraiser stood their ground, and we did order. I have to get the underwriter's blessing on this, right? And I have to voice my opinion and say, listen, they have a point. We've brought this up to the appraiser. The appraiser doesn't agree, he's not budging. I like to get a second opinion. You know what I mean? Like I said, these are exceptions, not the rule. We're working with a group of appraisers who are very competent, and so far, like I said, we've done very well over the last 10 years that ValueQuest has been in existence, but it does happen. So to answer the question, you would get together with the loan officer, you'd fill out the ROV. There's plenty of space to put your notes and thoughts in it, and then file it back to us, and we would reach out to the appraiser.
Great.
Other questions, Steve?
Well, yeah,
Yes.
there's a couple others.
There's a couple others, yeah.
One is, can you make adjustments for an extra bedroom? Say the subject property is 2-bedroom and the comps are similar, maybe in square footage, but they're 3-bedroom, or a 3-bedroom to a 4-bedroom.
Great question. Typically, when you're going 2 to 3 and 3 to 4, most appraisers don't adjust for the functionality difference of a 2-bedroom versus a 3 because it's already included in the GLA, right? It's when you have a subject that's a 1-bedroom, right? and you see no other comparables that are also one bedrooms, or when you have, you know, a two bedroom, like the question was asked, and you look across the board, right? And there's no two bedrooms. We like to see, you know, myself as a reviewer and underwriters, we like to see bracketing, right? If you couldn't find a two bedroom sale, right? And as an appraiser, you're not adjusting for it. We're looking for commentary to see whether or not there's a market preference for 3 versus 2, right? When you get above 4s and you're going 4 to 5, 5 to 6, then you get into homes that are, you know, possibly greater than 3,000 square feet, and by then, you know, it's like, okay, it's good to have. Again, we're looking for bracketing, but we typically don't expect to see adjustments for it, especially when it's already figured into the GLA. But there's I don't think anybody would argue that you know, a 1-bedroom home compared to a 3-bedroom home obviously is not going to appeal to the same you know, market participant, where especially when we had low inventory, you might have a buyer that's looking for you know, a 3-bedroom who may settle for a 2-bedroom, right? So depending on market conditions and all that, but typically, you know, 2s compares to 3s and 3s to 4. I typically don't see adjustments for the bedrooms.
Awesome. And I think the last one was a house in Chapman, Connecticut, which is in the Quiet Quarter, and I think there's 35 closings a year there. There's a 2-family and a single family on the same lot with another like outbuilding. How do you price something like that? I don't even think there's another multifamily in Chapman.
Okay, so it was a 2-family with an additional single family on the lot, right?
Right.
So the every appraisal, on the first page, about halfway down, there's the question that the appraiser answer is: the highest and best use of the property as improved. If I receive that assignment, I'm potentially looking at a 3-family, right? If now it's going to get into zoning, what is allowed, not allowed, right? So let's say zoning didn't allow for 3 families, right? We wouldn't be able to do the loan because Fannie doesn't accept multifamilies with ADUs, right? If the property, if you had told me it was a single family with an additional detached ADU, then we would be looking for, you know, the appraiser to talk about the highest and best use, talk about the ADU, and then provide us comps with similar ADUs, right? So let's go back. You got a 2-unit plus a single detached. Let's assume there's no zoning infringement and 3 families, you know, units are allowed, right? We would look for 3-family comps, right? Preferably one of those comps would be one that's a 2-family with a detached, with additional detached unit. However, if one can't be found, we're looking for commentary, right? The appraiser just has to describe what he or she did, and you know, it doesn't mean that we're going to turn down the loan. You know what I mean? But assuming there was no problems with zoning, building codes, or anything like that, that property most likely is going to be viewed as a 3-family dwelling. If it was already zoned in a multifamily zone, most likely, if whether it's a 2-family or 3-family, that shouldn't be an issue. And you could potentially have 3 units that are income generating. A little note on that with ADUs, be careful with those. You know, some towns have very specific zoning guidelines that ADUs cannot generate income. They're meant for family use only. And so if you're trying to qualify a borrower using the rent from an ADU, that's not going to fly if not permitted by zoning.
Interesting. Thank you.
I have a question as far as the value we used to use or appraisers used to use on 2 properties. One was 2,000 square feet, another was 2,300 square feet. What value per square foot do you give for those additional square feet? as well as like what's being used for additional bathrooms, garages? Is there any rule of thumb?
Yeah, that's always the magic question, right?
Yeah.
Do I have a guideline for what an adjustment should be? So I assume you're saying the subject was 2,000 square feet and the comp was 2,300?
Yeah, or
that-
vice versa.
Right. So, or vice versa. That's certainly within an acceptable range, right? 2,300 versus 2,000. That's only 300 square foot difference, right? And don't forget, right? Every appraisal, the appraiser's job is to provide the best comparable possible, right? I mentioned earlier how in the Northeast it's very tough to find homogeneous housing where every house is the same and it might be a mirror image. So we expect to see differences. We expect to see adjustments, right? Going back to our review process, right? Let's say that you asked me the magic questions, right? With the crystal ball, should it be $50 a square foot or should it be, $30 a square foot, right? Well, when we look at it, I'm looking for how is that adjustment related to the other adjustments within the report, and by that I mean we once had an appraisal. The subject had one fireplace but two garages. The comp had one garage and two fireplaces. The adjustment for the garage was 2,500. The adjustment for the fireplaces was 5,000, right? So I'll never win a battle with an appraiser that, says you should be adjusting X amount for garages and bathrooms and GLA. But I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, we live in the Northeast, right? We don't use fireplaces as a main heat source. It's still pretty much a luxury item. Sure, is it nice to have a second fireplace? But if you working with your buyers, right? If you gave them the option, hey, you have this house and the identical house other than the difference of the garage and the fireplaces, right? I guarantee you that 9 out of 10 buyers would choose the extra garage given some of the winters that we have, snow, etc. Right? So when I saw the adjustment for the fireplace being more than the garage, I flagged it and reached out to the appraiser to show me your computation, because we're not there yet, right? Fannie Mae is not requesting the appraiser's work file to be adjoined to the report, right? Every appraisal that is done, an appraiser should have a work file that shows how they came up with the adjustments, why they chose the comps that they did. Equally as important, comps that they reviewed and didn't choose and why, right? So when you ask, what should that adjustment be? I'm going to use the tools that we have available to us. That Collateral Underwriter software is a tremendous tool, right? Because if I go in there and it says, well, your peer adjusted at $30 a square foot, I can click on the adjustment itself and see what other appraisers are adjusting at. If everybody's adjusting at 60 or higher, right? You bet I'm going to go back to the appraiser and say, hey, listen, you're at the 10% of adjustments who had adjusted it at $30 a square foot. 90 or greater, right? 90% or more have adjusted it. Please provide support of how you came up with your $30 a square foot, right? And the minute you do that, they kind of reconsider it, because it's a very fine line, like to show your support and not have somebody poke holes in it. You know what I mean? So as a gauge for that 2,000, I would say anywhere between $40 to $50 a square foot, depending on quality, condition, et cetera. Garages, same thing. 10,000, 5,000 per bay, 10,000 if they're heated and they're larger. But these aren't hard numbers, right? These are, like I said, it's more important for me to see how it compares to other adjustments in the report and our review process, right? Pools, right? We get pools in the Northeast. 50% of buyers don't want them. It's a hassle. It's going to cost more. It's maintenance. It's more in insurance, etc. They want it buried, right? If I see an appraisal where the appraiser attributed $50,000 adjustment for the pool, I've seen them, and these were $1 million homes with pools that were gunite, fire pits built into the patio, jacuzzis built into the pool. So that was not a crazy adjustment. If I see that same type of adjustment on a let's say a vinyl pool, just a basic hole in the ground, it's going to raise some flags and some eyebrows and some questions. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. Any other questions? I will just breeze through these, okay, because we're at the top of the hour, unless you want me to stop. But it's the most common FHA stuff that comes up, and I'm still surprised that when we kick something back, either the realtor didn't realize, the seller didn't realize, the listing agent, whoever it may be, the loan officer. You have to remember that an FHA appraisal is done to additional standards, and you got to think of the 3S rule: safety, soundness, and security. And security is not going to mean what you think it means. I'll touch upon that. Most commons: well and septic, peeling paint, attic and crawl spaces. That's the HUD site. Look up appraisal guide, look up 4000.1 handbook and download the PDF format of that, because you can do searches. Like if you want to know all about septics, type the word septic in and it'll show you how many times it shows up in that document. Okay. Safety, right? All the areas of the home, the structure is sound, that you can have people living there without a safety issue, right? It's livable. It's not going to put anybody's health in harm's way. Soundness. The structure was built it was built to current standards, building codes, et cetera, et cetera. It's not leaning over. It's not falling down. By the way, we had a 203K one time just to fix the rotted beams, right? So that it does happen, and we see it. If the beams the main support beams had been devastated by termites, and that was the one thing they really had to fix on it. And they were surprised that the 203K value didn't come in much higher than what they were selling it for, because everybody expects a home to be livable, right? Again, soundness and safety. Security, it's not, is the home secure? You have bars in the window, doors that lock, et cetera, et cetera. It's that it has to have resale value, right? When we rubber stamp our appraisal and we say we're good with it, right? We've done all our due diligence and we send it to HUD and FHA. We're saying that we approve it, right? And that this, should the borrower default, because it's going to be FHA insured, they don't need to worry about it. We've looked at the house, it meets all FHA guidelines, right? And so it's the security of the collateral, okay, that's in question. So if you have a house that has a well and septic, right? If you could get a hold of the map, please do so. That's going to save you a bunch of time. It might save you on re-inspections, right? And as a realtor, what you should be concerned with, if you know it's going to go FHA, and these guys will tell you, we do a ton of FHA, right? I think maybe 50, 40, whatever, 40, 50% of our loans may go FHA. Steve and them, Joanne and company, they may know better, but don't exclude that market segment of your borrowers that are only going to qualify for FHA loans, because some of these things are trivial. I'll show you some examples, but well and septic, it's always think of the well, right? Where's the well location related to the property line, the septic tank, and then the leaching fields, right? It's got to be 10 feet from the property line, 50 feet from the septic tank, and 100 feet from the leaching fields, right? Now, I just saw a typo on that. HUD will accept 75 feet. Most towns are okay with 75 feet. If it's okay by the town, or like, for example, we're in Avon, so Farmington Valley Health Department governs over here. If it's okay by them, then it'll be okay for HUD, right? Defective paint. Can't tell you how many times I get an appraisal that's got defect, subject to painting and rescraping. First question I get, it's built after 1978. We don't have to worry about that, right? If the dwelling was built, and notice how they changed this back in January of this year, because they finally had to make it clear, right? If it's built prior to 1978, there's a potential lead risk, right? We, as a lender, have to make sure that there's no lead on the property, right? But if it is built after 1978, right? The question you have to ask yourself is the deferred maintenance interior or exterior, right? Because if it's exterior, it doesn't matter if it was built prior to 1978 or after. Any surface, whether wood or metal, if left exposed, is going to further deteriorate. It's going to have to be addressed, right? This is going really fast through this. So just to recap, let's say you have, and this is any structure on the property, by the way, it's a detached garage, it's a shed. I've seen appraisals where the shed was like leaning over, worse than the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and it was about to fall down. It was easier to get it off the property than it was to fix it, okay? Fences, if it had a coat of paint and that's now peeling, that's gonna have to be scraped and repainted, right? Any surface that stands to further deteriorate if left exposed will have to be addressed. Concrete, right? That's a surface that needs that can be left alone, right? So I've had conversations with appraisers where yes, some of the paint was coming off because they chose to paint the concrete, but it was a house that was built in 95 or 2000, whatever it was. I said, technically, yeah, it's ugly because it's peeling, but there's no health and safety issues there, right? And everybody was good with it, right? Attic and crawl spaces, the appraiser has to have access to both, right? It doesn't mean the appraiser has to bring with them every type of ladder, 20 feet, 10 feet, 50 feet, right? They need to have access. They need to be able to, at a minimum, do a head and shoulders inspection and be able to see the entire attic and the entire space, right? If they can't, we're gonna get a subject to appraisal, right? And it'll say subject to inspection by a qualified attic expert or crawl space or foundation expert, right? Very common, right? Scuttle is in the closet. Appraiser shows up. That's what's in the closet. Washer and dryer. I think I was called names on this one because everybody couldn't believe that the appraiser just couldn't lean his ladder against the machines and peek in there. And the appraiser is not expected to do that. They're not taking on the liability of damaging personal property, right? So those machines had to be removed. The appraiser had to come back and do an inspection of the attic going through that scuttle. Handrails, the HUD has removed the must-have, okay, handrails. It's up to the appraiser's discretion. This one's kind of a no-brainer because you can see where the handrails used to be, right? Sorry, I keep clicking my mouse here. So this was definitely subject to handrail installation. A good, benchmark, 2 steps, right? If you just had these 2 steps right here, probably the appraiser will probably not call for a handrail. If you want to prepare yourself, find out what's required by the town building code. Typically, 30 inches of rise, right? So going from level ground to up to 30 inches, you don't need a handrail. So you can argue that, hey, this past building inspection, it has a CO, but it is to the appraiser's discretion and then to our underwriter's discretion. If the underwriter doesn't agree and calls for the installation of handrails, it's going to have to be done so, right? Just a peeling paint example, old windows on a house. If this window, if this home was built before 1978, this is a definite must, right? You could have a small child going up, putting their teeth on it, yada, yada, yada. This would have to be addressed. If this home was built after 1978 and had this peeling paint on the interior of the home, that is a cosmetic deferred maintenance, right? The appraiser is going to address, okay, this home needs a paint job on the interior, and we'll address it in the condition line of the appraisal. It'll not be an automatic subject to condition that has to be fixed, okay? This is an appraisal we received. This is the main line coming in from the power company, and this was a ranch. So you can see the danger there, okay? Not very common, but this is an oddball that showed up, right? This is very common. This is a home that got replacement windows, and normally when they do the replacement windows, they wrap all the wood, right, surfaces with aluminum. This was not done correctly, probably missing some caulking here, and now you have rot. Not only do you have peeling paint, but right here, you have the rot that has to be fixed, right? Super common in the Northeast, Doco doors, primary areas of peeling paint, right? That would have to be addressed. Again, these are all exterior surfaces. Forget about whether it's built between before or after 1978. They're going to have to be addressed. This one here got me, and I use it as an example for a reason. This was the only condition in the appraisal, the missing cover on these junction boxes. Probably $2, $3 at most, right? Had to order a reinspection, right? The appraiser's like, do you have them on site? Do you want to put them on right now? He's telling me, Ellie, I tried. You know what I mean? If they had it, I would have waited, and you wouldn't have had a subject to. But this was the only thing that he had to go back to, and that, my friends, is what I had for you. Here's some helpful information if you want to screenshot. Take screenshots of your screens. I'm available for any questions. Reach out, whether through our loan officers, if you have questions, if it's over the weekend, et cetera, that's what I'm here for. I'm trying to support everybody with any appraisal related needs.
Ellie,
Any more
thank you.
questions that came up? Anything else? Before?
Are you're open to stay on if anybody has questions?
I'm open to stay on. Yep.
Yeah. So if you guys if you guys want to fire away questions, if you'd rather send an email, you could certainly send it to me or your loan officer, whether it be Joanne, Cliff, David, Kelsey. If you have any questions, even if it comes up after the fact, right? You may have a question tomorrow or next week. Send them to us and we can get them to Ellie, and I'm sure he'll jump in and answer.
Sounds
All right.
good.
All right, buddy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome, Steve. Anytime. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Great crowd, good numbers. So till next time. Thank you, guys.
Have a good one, everybody.